WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are positively presenting some great stuff here. Radio Row history is what we're in the midst of doing is the month of February, but I'm also mixing in some here and now when the Ravens are out hiring offensive coordinators, and this guy will be here on Thursday talking about all things Ravens and probably a little Orioles, given the John Angelos news this week as well. He'll be here from 3 until 5. He is Dennis Koulatsos. You can find him out at D Koulatsos Show, as well as Dennis Koulatsos, as well as on the front of Baltimore Positive. Been a little while. We had a little downtime, you and I, Super Bowl and Mahomes and all of that, and certainly a nice time to get away when it's cold here and warm in other places. But the Ravens, in whatever they're doing here in the next 6 or 8 weeks, we're about to find out, right? We've talked a lot about this in the last 6-8 weeks, but we're about to get up on it. And the first piece is they've hired an offensive coordinator, Todd Monken, some college, some pro. The thorough search. I have no complaints with this hire. None.
I don't either. And again, it just goes to show you that even with the uncertainty at quarterback, it was still a very, very attractive position for an experienced coordinator to come in. Don't know that he was their first choice. Looks like they were trying to get Eric Bieniemy's attention. The interest wasn't mutual, from what I gather. But I'm happy with a pick. It'll elevate the offense into the 21st century. There'll be more emphasis on the passing game. We saw the type of offense he ran at Georgia the last 2 seasons. And it opens up, like you said, a lot of possibilities, including maybe the drafting of Stetson Bennett, who may have gone undrafted, may have been a free agent. But we'll see how that plays out, because here's a quarterback who had great success with the Monken in college, and we'll know his offense right away.
Yeah. I mean, you're getting way ahead on all of this.
I am ahead,
right?
man. I'm not saying the guy's going to start. I don't know that he's a starting caliber quarterback in the NFL, but I think in the backup role, and who knows what's going to happen with the Lamar Jackson situation. All things, to me, are pointing to a tag and trade scenario. But I do like Monken, and I've even looked at the offensive players for Georgia to see who would be a good fit for the Ravens since he's had experience with them.
You know, it's fascinating because I've been doing a little traveling and talking to people, and people run into me and they want to talk Ravens with me. In addition to Radio Row and all the stuff we've been presenting, people have been coming at me about, oh, I didn't know you interviewed Johnny Cochran. I'm like, hey, oh, there it is. Go check it out if you want to hear it, And we talked about, believe it or not, it was 2003. The conversation was about race and hiring in the NFL. The Rooney Rule was a brand new rule then. So interesting things have happened. But the interesting thing for me is where people are on Lamar and the public sentiment, not amongst, and you always divide the world into Lamar fans and Ravens fans, and some of them are both. We're Ravens fans here, right? And we would say we're going to be Ravens fans if Lamar's playing for the Falcons in 5 weeks or whatever.
Yeah.
You have no problem. I mean, it almost sounds flippant when you say it that, I think they're going to tag and trade him. Like, we've never had to predict anything like this in 27 years of covering the team. I go back to that Ray Lewis piece I unearthed, 24 minutes with Ray Lewis in Tampa in 2009 when he from Radio Row, when he was about to go out and seek his value. There's so many scenarios in all of this, and it's so way more complicated than chess. I don't know what game to compare it to. Canasta, I'm not sure. But when you're talking about this organization saying, okay, we're going to tag and trade you, Lamar, go find your best deal, get your agent. He doesn't have an agent. I don't even know how this gets orchestrated, that the Ravens get 3 number 1 picks for somebody and Lamar gets $228 million of guaranteed money from an – how does this happen without a middleman, without an agent? I mean, all of this is so weird. And if he comes back here and plays here and signs here and there's a kumbaya moment, you and I are going to have to swallow a lot of our words and where we are and the way we've measured this and seen it this way, because this is not what they're talking about over at 105.7 or definitely over at BAL, because they're under contract. They want to keep their press pass. But like, to me and you, it feels very obvious. And I don't know, I'm not a betting guy and neither are you, but if we were going to bet on what's going to happen here, I would strongly, it's a strong advisement that they're going to deal him. And you feel the same way. Why is it that not everybody else feels this way?
Well, Because I think it goes back to my experience, my truth. I think people look at things through their own lens, and that lens oftentimes it's distorted. And I don't have blind love for the player any more than I have blind love for the team. Although I was very much all in on the player when he was drafted, but there are some things that cause you to pause. Right, the injuries, you can't get around that. The last 2 Decembers, he hasn't been available to lead the team into the playoffs. The social media presence, the immaturity that we've seen snapping back at a fan. And now I saw Patrick Queen a couple of weeks ago get into it with a fan, try to educate him on the finer points of the game. And then, of course, he goes off the Twitter, and now there's speculation he'll also be traded. But this is a very image conscious organization. Nestor, Steve Bisciotti, welcome back. Ray Rice with open arms until the video came out, right? So the man wants to protect his image. He's made a lot of money. He's a businessman first and a football owner second. And so to me, reading the tea leaves as you have all along, I just don't see this having a happy ending between Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And I think both parties are going to be fine no matter what happens.
Well, we are in the minority out loud in saying that, right? And I don't know what point this happens or but the chips are starting to fall, right? They have a non-denominational offensive coordinator. Is that fair to say, right?
I love that. Yeah.
Non-denominational, like literally, right? I mean, he's can draw up plays for anybody. He
yes,
has.
He can. Yes,
in
he
good
can.
teams and bad teams. He's been a head coach at Southern Miss and do very well at that point, but that's about recruitment. I mean, he was in the college game where these kids are now getting paid a little bit of money. I mean, I get that every time I watch Maryland play basketball and I watch this guy Willard run around, and whether they're beating Purdue or whether I sat there for 2.5 hours and watched them lose to Nebraska the other night, right? And I invested there was no football on Sunday. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to watch the Turf. Turfs are in the Big What? They're playing in Lincoln where? And
that
okay.
was amazing. Amazing.
But I would just say for this guy to come back and say, I'm going to be in the NFL. You mentioned the Bieniemy, and obviously the guy up in Philadelphia was waiting for the next chair, and then the Colts hired the offense coordinator. Like all that happens. But for me, to say we had 14 of this and we hired minority candidates and we Rudy ruled and we followed all that, it feels to me like Todd Monken was the guy they wanted to hire. And in the beginning, I didn't get the sense that they were holding out for anybody in any particular way other than for it to be over with. And I think there's an exhale that's happened now that's happened for John, and Calais Campbell has announced he's coming back, right? So you can talk about Patrick Queen, you can talk about Lamar and what that would represent and where those deals would be. But I think they're headlong now into combine, into player evaluation. It's a time for pay and play, and all their guys except for Lamar, and they have that $50 million put aside. But in my mind, if they're moving on from Lamar, they're moving on. Luke brought up a great point, and this would be something great for your show this week from 3 until 5 that you could talk to Luke about. That it won't be as easy as we make it out to be, that Lamar's great. Someone will want Lamar. Look at what happened with Deshaun Watson last year. Everybody got all in. That there will just be multiple suitors out there willing to give the Ravens an attractive array of draft capital as well as a starting corner or a slot receiver or something that the Ravens would want. I don't know. This is going to be fascinating because the first thing that you said is he hadn't played in the playoffs the last 2 years. So wherever you're welcoming him, and if you're in some god awful place like Atlanta, Carolina, after all Tampa's been through with Tom Brady, you bring in a Messiah who runs around and sells tickets and is exciting. I don't know. I don't know that he has to bring a parade to Tampa. They just had one, right? So he needs to bring excitement. That there's a different level of why you would want Lamar Jackson, what you would be willing to give up, from ownership to the general manager to the head coach that inherits him, right? That would say, I can win with him. I know I can win with him. The Ravens were pretty convicted about being able to win with him, so much so that they took 5 years of their lives. 5 years of John Harbaugh's career and 5 years of Eric DeCosta's career and Ozzy's last pick and all of that. Steve's 5 years of his ownership, where he probably began the 5 years thinking he wouldn't own it 5 years later, and he's still here. And there was a plague. All of that's baked into this, but they have to find somebody to dance for Lamar. And Luke brought up that really difficult part of, okay, Lamar, you're free to negotiate. Who does he negotiate? Is he on the phone with Stephen Ross? Is he
Well,
flying down to Miami on a Learjet and hanging out and putting his feet up like LeBron and talking about where he's taking his talents? I mean, because all that's about to happen, right? If
it
that's
is.
going to
It
happen,
is.
right? Right?
I think it's going to happen, Nestor. I think he will negotiate with teams once he's tagged, and because he is very much his own agent. And I think there'll be a bidding war for his services from some of these poverty franchises you just named. There's pressure on the ownership to sell tickets, pressure on the head coach to put fannies in the seats and to get some W's. And let's keep in mind it's a 53-man sport, and we also saw Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl, right? Aside from Travis Kelce, who were his receivers? So we saw a generational talent, clearly the best quarterback in the NFL, elevate a group of no-name receivers. Lamar Jackson hasn't proved he can do that, right? Patrick Mahomes is worth $500,000, but I'm not sure that, or $500 million, whatever the number was, $500 million. But Lamar Jackson, as much as I like the guy, he hasn't proven he can do that. And the Ravens have enough. They have an offensive line. They have a defense. They have coaching. They have special teams. They have a running game. They have the pieces that, with adequate quarterback play and adequate passing offense, they can make some noise in the playoffs and continue to be a force in the AFC.
Adequate. Is that Derek Carr? Is that Tyler Haneke? I mean, what's adequate? I mean,
Well,
because
adequate
that's
is,
the first
yeah.
question: is what if it's not Lamar Jackson? Let's hope it's not Tyler Huntley. I mean, I don't. That's not
No,
good
I don't
enough.
think it's Huntley. I think he proved that in the playoffs. He's not the guy. So maybe you bring in a Taylor Heineke while CJ Stroud or somebody like that, Anthony Richardson, whoever they draft high, gets ready. He'll keep the chair warm for the first, let's call it, 8 games of the season. And if the Ravens are playing 500 ball and you insert the rook in there and he starts looking okay, they have a shot. But this is a team that never rebuilds. This is a team that retools and reloads regardless of who's playing quarterback for them. They're going to be competitive. They're going to be competitive enough with or without Lamar Jackson. That's my feeling.
Dennis Koulatsos is here. He will be there on your dial from 3 until 5 on Thursday, and as well as Sunday morning from 8 until noon on the Sunday Sports Force. You can find him out at the front of Baltimore Positive. You can also find him over Coons Forest, Security Boulevard, back in the game over there, President's Day, and still as many cars as anybody on the lot. I don't know how you're doing it over there, but I got the shirt rolling out here as well. For the rest of this, for the Ravens, Calais Campbell, a piece. Obviously, defensive coordinator was something they sought last year. That was the
Mhm.
hiring of last year's campaign. That John now has this thing where he wants it. Eric has it where he wants it. They have, I would think, if they're thinking we won't have Lamar, that the draft becomes even more important, right? Because now you're looking for a quarterback, right? I mean,
Oh
and
yeah.
that would be the homework that's really going on inside football out in the castle, which is if they've made their mind up that there is no more Lamar,
Yep.
then it's even more paramount that whatever they get back in draft capital, that they're ready to go pick football players 8 weeks from now.
Yeah, they have to, and they have to get it right. That's the other piece. I think they have about a 30% chance of getting it right. There's also Baker Mayfield, and let's talk about names lurking in the background, who has a lot of success under Todd Monken in Cleveland, right? And the Ravens have always liked Baker. I don't like his personality. Hopefully, he's grown up a little bit, but he's a free agent, so I wouldn't be surprised. And Baker can play good enough ball to get you into the playoffs, particularly with a good offensive line, running game, and a defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if they bring Baker in and maybe they don't draft a quarterback.
Did you fall asleep on the game the night when he came back with the Rams, or were you watching that one?
I was watching it. I was actually rooting for the guy. I thought it was a great story.
Yeah. So I mean,
He's a tough
I'm
guy.
not a
He's tough.
hater. I think he's a little bit of a punk, in
He's
that
a punk, but
sort of.
he's a tough guy though, and he actually fits. If you think about it, he actually fits Baltimore. Chip on his
Well,
shoulder, a
he
little
would
bit
have more
undersized.
than Trent Dilfer. Would have more of a.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah.
1-1. I mean, but
He is a
but that being
one-one.
said, with him,
And I
I've
don't know
seen
what
a
the
lot
money
of
would look like
ish,
with
right?
Baker. I don't know what's that.
I've seen a lot of ish in my life, right? Like
I know you have.
whether it's Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, I think Jim Abbott. I mean, aside from everything with Jim Abbott, like crazy. And I think about like the guy that came in and played goalie from the stands in Carolina, like
Mhm.
things that have happened in legitimate sporting events, not Eddie Goodell or anything circusy. And not even Willis Reed or Lamar Jackson using the potty in Cleveland and coming back and winning. I'm talking about getting dealt to another franchise as an NFL quarterback during a short week and then coming in having never met your teammates and winning the
Amazing.
game.
Amazing.
Like I like that is still like
And the
it's up
blowout, right? I
there.
mean,
It's really up there.
he was throwing strikes, right? I mean, he didn't even know the plays. They had to tell him what the plays were in the huddle. I thought those folks volumes of his character and his talent. The
Yes,
guy
yes,
he
he'll
can play,
always have that
and
for me.
he's still a young quarterback. There's still, and keep in mind he does have a track record with Monken. His offense, it could be a fit. Call me crazy, but I
And he
think
was drafted higher than Lamar. Ask him.
he'll be quick to tell you that. But wouldn't that be something, right? Again, there's multiple scenarios that can play out, and maybe you keep this window open to be competitive because unless you have the dude at quarterback, it doesn't make sense to place the franchise tag on him and to extend him. That's the other piece of it. You better be sure he's going to be the real deal, available, what you want to represent your franchise. It just goes on and on. There's a big picture here, just more so than what the guy does on the field when he's on the field.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out how much money he's made versus Lamar, now that all the incentives have
Oh
been made.
yeah.
But he got some commercial money and whatnot. But yeah, it is interesting where they are in the pecking order. Baker Mayfield available free of charge. Lamar Jackson, I want 3 number ones, and you have to give him $200 million.
Yeah.
And he might not be available in January. Might not be, right?
Might
I
not
mean,
be.
hasn't been the last couple of years during the prime of his career. So it's fascinating how the stones are valued in the garden, right?
Well,
Like literally,
think about
right?
this way too, Nestor. They sign him, right? They give him whatever, 2.25 guaranteed. They get him receivers, and the offense doesn't improve because he still can't make the throws outside the numbers because whatever. Now you're stuck. Now you're stuck for a long, long time, which is why I just don't see that guaranteed contract given up by the Baltimore Ravens. Maybe there's another team that'll do it for him, but it won't be the Ravens. We said that. You and I have said that from day one.
Well, I think I read Steve Bisciotti's body language, although I didn't get a chance to ask any questions. Speaking of ownership and poor ownership, any thoughts on John Angelos right now and the fact that he's now come out?
I saw him down in Florida talking to Brandon Hyde. But still hasn't opened up the book, so that's been very telling. So I don't know. I don't know about you, but when I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I have a tendency to do it 100% of the time.
Not 99, 100.
100. If I tell you I'm going to jump off the roof tomorrow at noon, I'll be up at 11:45, warming up, flapping my wings. You know what I'm saying to you? So if you're going to be transparent, if you're going to offer that to the public, to the media, and you don't follow through, what does that say about you?
It says exactly what it says about you.
Speaks volumes, right, to me. So
it's really loud for being quiet, I would say.
Yeah. So we'll root for the team. Look forward to spring training and the Orioles, and we'll follow them. And they're up and coming, and they're young. But the investment, certainly the offseason investment that was promised, hasn't been there for us.
Nor has the signature wet with ink on a long-term lease to guarantee that the fans should be fully invested in.
Wow. Why not a 5 year? Why not a signature on a 5 year lease as they work on a longer lease? At least why not put the next 5 years to rest versus, as you know what I'm saying to you?
And how about whatever that vision is for what you're asking for from the state of Maryland as you go forward? What's the vision? What do you think that parking lot should be? How big should the casino be? You know what I mean? Like just basic questions like that.
Sure. Look, I haven't been to Nashville yet. Hopefully, we'll go this year to watch the Ravens play. But I certainly don't want to watch the Orioles play in Nashville as their home team.
Yeah,
I don't want to see that happen in my lifetime.
I saw he was answering questions, John Angelos, this week, and I think it's fascinating that asking for money, asking for a deal, negotiating, and then somehow for the first time like ever coming out into the forefront and like trying to do proactive PR, even not doing it well, right? But trying to do what you and I do every day. Front for our business, try to be right guys, try to sell a car, try to sell a sponsorship, try to sell a concept, and like literally just be a dude. Be a guy, right? Like literally. He's trying. He's out in front of it all of a sudden, right?
Can you imagine owning the Baltimore Orioles and being the face of their franchise and being out front and doing great things and being transparent?
And how proud you could be of it. Yeah. Even if you lost, you could still be proud of it.
I told you as a Greek American, I was extremely proud when Peter Angelos bought the franchise. I thought he was going to do great things with it based on his track record as an attorney. I had no reason to think otherwise. I think he would use it as Eddie, but DeBartolo Jr. uses it in San Francisco with the Niners. Just yeah, it's his toy, right? Something he can be proud of, something he can win a lot at. Not something he would just focus on making money off of.
He didn't win a lot. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
He
You know
made
what I
money
mean?
off of it, though. He made a lot of money off of it, right? But to me, the
He won a
legacy,
lot of battles.
yeah, but the
A lot
legacy,
of
what's the
battles.
legacy, though? And to me,
Well,
it's all about the legacy. What are you leaving behind?
I once had a conversation with Steve Bisciotti about Peter Angelos's legacy, like a long, deep one. I'm going to write about that one day.
You
Dennis
should.
Koulatsos will be here. He'll be writing his book on Thursday from 3 until 5 and again on Sunday morning from 8 until noon. They tell him something about Coons Baltimore Ford. Like, hey, let me in on what's going on. President's Day, this, that, volume, deals, how you trade ins. I'm hearing more than like trade ins are going back up again. Like
They're
that
going
when
back
it
up
comes
again.
time for
Yes.
me, my wife to get rid of our jalopy, you're going to give us more money for it.
Yeah, I went to a meeting, a Ford meeting actually in Florida, and when Jim Farley was there, the CEO of Ford, and gave us a lot of great information. But for President's Day week, and until the end of the month, we have 0% for 36 months on 2022 F-150. So somebody who was thinking about paying cash, use Ford's money for 36 months at 0%, and that way you have an interest-free loan. And put your money in the bank right now. I believe most high-yield savings accounts are giving up like 4% money, 4.25. So you can make money on your money and use someone else's money. That's a big message right now. And that's we have a lot of great finance deals on most of our products.
I'll say this. I was in Texas last week, okay? And I was on the back roads of Florida as well. So say what you will politically about the states, wherever they are,
Hmm.
and what they produce and what they mean. I drove from Tampa to Orlando, and then I drove from Houston to Austin. I had never been anywhere near any of those places. Part of my deal is I want to see some new things, right? So I saw more trucks and
Oh,
pickup trucks, specifically in Texas,
it's truck
on
truck
like,
country.
and more than that, and not trucks in a Harford County kind of.
Right.
I live in a townhouse and I have a big truck because I think it's cool, but like legitimate farmers, legitimate people doing things of the earth, of the soil, of the land in general. That Ford would offer something like that at this time would say to me, hey, if you need a new one and you're
Yep.
doing work, this is a great, I mean, and we have a lot of
That's
people that work
fantastic.
with tools and do work and need a truck, they need a work truck. That this is a time to talk about that. But I saw it in Texas. It was just that I got overrun by trucks. I'm like, what are all these people doing? I'm like, oh, everything's spread out. That guy's probably like got chickens and pigs and he's a farmer. But I saw just so much of that. And it was obvious to me.
I have a friend who runs a huge Ford store in Austin. His name is Greg Kimball, Maxwell Ford. I'll give them a shout out. But we were just talking about the truck market down there, and they pump a lot of Ford trucks in that market. And Houston and Austin are two different cities, aren't they?
It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's it's
Like,
it's
and
it's
and
yeah.
I'm a guy. Okay, so full experience, plenty of time in Dallas, plenty of time in Houston, plenty. 30 days of my life in both places, maybe more, right? Austin, one night of my life in Austin. My brother lived there 20 years ago, and I went in for a Springsteen concert, saw very little, wound up hanging out all night with Brian Baldinger, uh, Troy Aikman, Jason Garrett before he was the coach of the Cowboys,
Mm.
and Kurt Menefee. Menefee and Baldinger were doing games together then. This is 20 years ago. So I'm at the Four Seasons, and I saw nothing in Austin other than Nils Lofgren and Gary W. Talent, right? I went back on a whim because Bruce was playing. I knew it had been a
Hmm.
growing place. It was going to feel like a place I had never been, and it did. It didn't feel anything, didn't look, smell anything like anything I remember from 20 years ago at all. But more than that, like going to a place like that and you can see what Baltimore could become and
Yep.
what places that have
All right.
infrastructure, have things going for it, have population going for it, have ideas going for it. Obviously, have a university going for it there and a state
Hmm.
capital and a lot of oil money. That's very obvious. But Austin, it was like not being in Texas. And I don't even mean that as a purgative thing. I just mean from what I know about San Antonio,
Yeah.
Dallas, Houston, and everything I've seen there, it all looks the same. All three of those places look like the same city to me, and they look like Texas. There's a highway. There's
Yep.
a weird on ramp to every highway that's an access road. There's a Whataburger. There's all of that, right? There's a Chick-fil-A. There's all the same stuff we got here, but it looks the same. You go to Austin, you would think you're in Raleigh, North Carolina, or you'd be in Portland, Oregon. It's greener. It's not as flat. It's hilly. It looks different. The buildings look different.
Hmm.
The architect, every part of it is different. And I couldn't get over it. I kept texting my wife. I said, I'm blown away. So tell your friend, give me the shout out again at your Ford dealership.
It's Maxwell Ford, and his name is Greg Kimball. Really, really good guy. Knows Earl Campbell. In fact, done some business with Earl. We struck up a conversation about the great Earl Campbell.
I'm wearing Oiler blue, and I'm taking a
Yes,
look
you
at this
are.
throwback. I don't
Got to get Earl on the show for sure.
I don't buy much on eBay beyond my the normal belt buckles I buy, but I did a search. Big mistake. I went into vintage stores in Houston looking for some Oilers stuff. Just to look. Give me something to do. Am I really shopping? If I see something for $50, maybe. But the idea, it's the journey. It gets me onto a road, puts me into a coffee shop I wouldn't find, into a hat store, whatever. And this Oiler search, Dennis, I hope I can show this to you. You see this
Yep.
Oiler jacket here?
I like it. I like
See,
it.
see, I found this on eBay, and I'm thinking, I got to have this, right? I mean, so I started shopping around. But Austin, Texas, all I did was sit in the car. My back hurts because I drove so much going to places. You tell your buddy in Austin, I had the best Tex-Mex meal. All due
Yep.
respect to El Guapo, any of our friends back to Chi-Chi's at Taco Bell. All right.
Yes.
I had a meal, Dennis. That was a meal. I mean, like it was so unbelievably delicious.
Now, where were you at?
Okay, so I have a friend that lives down in Austin. He's a transplant from New Jersey, and everybody asks him, why do you live there, and like what's down in Austin. The place is called Enchiladas y Mas. That's enchiladas YMAS, enchiladas y Mas, and it's 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, every year, best Mexican in Austin, Tex-Mex, all that. It is the most humble
Mm.
cafeteria. It's on the north side of Austin. It's on a regular road. It's in a regular place. But if you're from Austin, you know about it. And I knew about it when I Googled it and saw it had 4,700 reviews at 4.6 stars. And
Yep.
everybody, I, it's simple, man. You asked me what it was. I got fajitas. They were chicken and beef and
Ah,
green peppers and onions. I got beans. They were just beans. And I had rice. It was just rice. It had cheese on it. I had guacamole. It was guacamole. I had shells and wraps. Every I had a Coors Light. I didn't even get Gucci on the beer. I didn't even go local.
nah, didn't
It
didn't
was
get a
one of the
Modelo.
best meals I've had, and it was $20.
And you know what? The funny thing is, it's hard for that type of food to stand out. So the fact that you have an outstanding Tex-Mex meal says a lot because a lot of it tastes the same no matter where you go.
Yeah,
But
and it just
when it's
wasn't.
different though, when it stands out, especially for $20, that's a home run.
This is, like my buddy Julio runs Tommy's Mexican. Like, love it. It's incredible. Get this shrimp Veracruz. It'll blow your mind. But this was unexpected. I thought I was
Eh,
getting barbecue and this and that. And I'm like, I said to Jen, I brought her home some barbecue. I spent $100, brought home ribs, brought home a crown rib, the
mm,
whole deal. Delicious. We've been eating it the last 3 days. And
nice.
I said to her, Austin, Texas, underrated. Shh, don't tell anybody. I'll never go to Dallas or Houston again.
There you go. And it's great food in Dallas and Houston too, both great cities.
I had a good time in Houston. And one of the things I've been doing, and you'll appreciate this from the sports heart, right? In my youth, and back when we were both kids in Essex and Dundalk running around Sedonia and Colgate Mall, or Colgate East Point Mall, the whole deal.
Hmm.
I used to dream of what the Omni would look like because of the wrestling matches and Georgia Championship Wrestling or
Yeah,
whatever. It was octagon. The Omni was a weird building. I went
it
there
was.
one time. I went for college basketball. I saw March Madness. I saw 4 games there one day. Alabama played with Wimp Sanderson in the suit on the. It was holding the Roll Tide roll, the whole deal. So I had beautiful experiences in these older buildings, but since they've put up newer buildings in places, I went to the Houston Summit 30 years ago, where famously Akeem the Dream, Clyde Drexler, but more than that, Journey had that MTV video, was at the Houston Summit with Steve Perry. That's legendary, right? So I'd been there, but I had never been to the Toyota Center, even though I'd done
Mm.
a couple Super Bowls and it's been there, and there have been Rockets games. And Pink concerts and whatever. And back in the day, Casey Willard or Ray, I have pictures of them at the Pink concert. Yeah, I didn't go. So I'd never been in that building. I went to Atlanta for the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Never went in the building there. There's a statue of Dominique Wilkins outside. I took a picture with the statue. I don't know if there's a Spud Webb statue, but there should be. But I had never been in the building. And this Springsteen tour, I've had a chance to go into a couple of really Gucci basketball gyms. You know what I mean? Like they're clearly built for basketball. I mean,
Right.
The one in Austin, Texas, is a college gym. You know, a little different. Moody Center and the people that are redoing the Baltimore Arena, the CFG Bank Arena, did that one. And in Houston, the Toyota Center, a little older. Atlanta, that State Farm Arena, a little, but they have like club seat balconies in like a different, it doesn't look like the Staples Center and it doesn't look like the DC building or they look different. And so I've checked out new buildings too. So food, buildings, Springsteen, family.
How was the concert? How was the concert? Because I know he's coming to M&T Bank Stadium. You recommend the show?
Well, here's the deal. When you see somebody like Bruce and you've been seeing him your whole life, you're always waiting for him to slow down. Kind of like Tom Brady, right? We were all waiting for Tom Brady to like slow down a little bit and it wouldn't be as good as it once was. And we've all seen rock stars slow down. I mean, U2's about to tour without their drummer, right? Like, because he can't physically play right now and they need to go make money, apparently. But seeing Bruce right now, it's still as good as it's ever been, as good as it can be at 73. Now, he's not crowd surfing. He's playing 2 hours and 45 minutes, right? But he is going out to the crowd during 10th Avenue Freeze Out. He's not doing knee dives anymore, any of that kind of stuff. I mean, he's in it for the long haul. And how about this? This would be the best thing I can say about Bruce, because I'm about to go on respite, and I might not talk too much about it until we see him again in April when he shows up here. He was better the fourth time than the first time. I've seen the show 4 times, twice the first week, twice the second week. I would say this, he's getting better. And we can all hope to just be getting better, right? If we're all getting better, you're getting better at Coons Baltimore Ford. I know you are, right?
I would like to think so. Look, we just saw Boyz II Men. They've been together for 31 years, and they were better than ever. And so I do appreciate that when artists are still climbing, still getting better. We saw the Eagles a couple of years ago. Same thing. Glad I saw a bunch of guys in the mid-70s that are iconic. So I appreciate that, and I will get my Bruce Springsteen tickets thanks to you.
Well, here's what I'm going to say about Bruce, and this is interesting for football, okay? So if you have Lamar changing the offense, right? You have Peyton Manning at 38. You're doing things for Peyton Manning that you're not doing to Peyton Manning at 28, right? And with Bruce, he's brought the brass and the singers, right? So he has 4 background singers and a brass foursome to go along with Jay Clemens. Guys have been getting COVID. Nils Lofgren had COVID in Houston. Jay Clemens, there was no sax player in Thursday night in Austin. Ed Mannion came down. They played 2 songs without a sax that they always play sax in, right? So things have Bruce is, he's audibling right through this. But more than that, this brass that he's brought out creates sections that have to be done now. He does Kitty's Back every night. He's doing a whole brass thing, a Marvin Gaye sort of Motown thing that he's doing that he's excited about. So you should be excited about it too, because even if you've seen Bruce 1,000 times, you haven't seen Bruce sing Marvin songs and do that sort of thing. He's got a couple of the new songs, but if you want to see the girl next to me kept saying in Austin, is he going to play Born to Run? Is he? I said, sweetie, he's going to play Born to Run, Glory Days, 10th Avenue, Freeze Out, Rosalita. You're going to be here dancing on your seat. You're going to leave here in a cold pool of sweat. And
that's awesome. They're there. Yeah, well, at 73, they're not getting any younger. So these legends, if I get a chance to see them, I'm all in. I'm going to go.
In the eternal words of Bruce Springsteen, it's a town full of losers, and we're pulling out of here to win.
Love it.
Dennis Koulatsos joins us. He every Thursday he does his own thing here from 3 until 5. His show's better than mine when I'm on it. I'm better than I usually am because I'm a better guest than host. He's also here on Sundays from 8 until noon, and you can find him out at Coons Baltimore Ford, as well as at the front of Baltimore Positive. And I put the APB out to Luke, even though I'm a little down for a few days, that the Coons Ford WNST text service alive and well for any maneuverings of the Orioles or the Ravens, or certainly whatever's going to happen to Lamar Jackson will happen first on the WNST Tech Service. I am Nestor. He is Dennis. We are WNST, AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking about Lamar Jackson and Baltimore Positive. Stay with us.